So in the last video, we showed how a market breaks down in the supply of non-excludable goods. You can't charge anyone to use them, so what incentive does anyone have to produce those goods, right? And how are you going? Who's going to pay for, like, if you're a fence company that's going to make a fence around the city that's going to protect it from wild animals? People can free ride and just say, I'm not going to pay for it. Let other people pay for it. You can't prevent me from enjoying the protection. Now, what if you could make the good excludable? So there are situations where you can do this. So, for example, you could, if there's a public park or just open land that anyone can go in, graze their animals or fish or enjoy, you could stick a fence around it, let somebody own it, and let them charge admission. And they could charge a price greater than zero, and maybe that can cover maintenance and upkeep costs. Or, it could be a good that is purely created, like new ideas and knowledge we can give people patents for, and then we can ask people, we can say a patent holder has the right to demand a fee to use the idea, okay? A license from other firms that want to use that technology. Those are two examples of how we make a non-excludable good excludable, and now we can attach a positive price, and then that means that we can make this a profitable business. Seems good, but the problem is if these goods are also non-rival, then any price that we charge that's greater than zero is inefficient. So can't we make public goods private? And you will see arguments for, like, we can have a private police force, a private fire department that will only put out the fire if you are a member and have paid for the club, and so on and so forth. So in this case, we're going to say the price is zero, or it's going to be greater than zero if we can make the good excludable. Here's the problem. If the good is non-rival, that means that multiple people can use this good simultaneously without diminishing it in any way. Okay? Multiple people can step into the park and experience the same pleasure. Multiple people can use the same idea without the idea being somehow cut into pieces because multiple people are using it, and so on. Okay? That means that the marginal cost of a new user of this idea is zero, right? Once we've built this idea, or once we've created this park, if we want to add another person's use of it, we can do that for free. Okay, we built the park without that expense. There's nobody who's going to be able to use the park at all. So the first person to use it, we have to spend all the money to create it. But then after we've created it, the second person, the third person, the fourth person, they all have zero marginal cost. So this is... And if you want to efficiently allocate it, if you want to efficiently allocate resources, that requires price equal to marginal cost, okay? Which means that the efficient price of this product is actually zero if we're going to use it efficiently. But we just saw that if you price it at zero, no one's going to be able to make any money. There's not going to be any profitable business and no incentive to start a business in this product, okay? So if it's not excludable, we got to charge a price of zero. That's good because that's actually the price that's efficient for a non-rival good. But it's also bad because no one is going to create that good if they can't make any money off of it. And that means that there's going to be an under-provision of public goods. The market, this is the main point, market alone does not provide enough public goods. Remember, public goods are non-rival and non-excludable because why would they, right? They can't make any money off of pure public goods. They can't charge people for them, and so on. So if we can't use the market to do this, what are we going to do? We're going to basically have, if we want to have these goods, which we probably do, we're going to have non-market provision. of public goods, i.e. governments. Okay, one more argument for why public goods are underprovided. And this one, let's draw a supply and demand figure. Okay, so let's suppose that we've got a product, like this is going to be a park that we're going to build that multiple people in this community can use for free. Okay, we're not going to put a fence around it, that'll ruin it somehow. Okay, the marginal cost of increasing the quality of this park. So Q here is the quality of the park, maybe how big and how pretty it is going to look like this. You can think of this as like, instead of, it's still a diagram over the cost to provide a quantity, but instead of a quantity, we're now thinking of a quality. If that's really hard, you can also think of it as like a quantity, the number of acres, how big this park is, doesn't matter. Now, let's suppose that there's two different people who are interested in this park. There's actually going to be a lot more. There might be, in our example, there's like 100 colonists, but we can illustrate the point with just two people. This person's got willingness to pay over here. So this is the demand curve for person one. So if the park's at zero quality, they'd pay a lot for that. And, if it was only their personal park where their demand crosses marginal cost of improving quality, that's how nice of a park they would build. Okay. So we can even do this if we want. That's how nice a park person one would build on their own. Person two likes parks a lot more, and their demand looks like this. This is their schedule of willingness to pay. So if it's up to them, they're going to build a park that's this nice. Now here's the problem. If this park was a normal good and we wanted to figure out the total demand from the market, the way we would do it is we would add these people's demand together. If this is the price of accessing this good, there's only one guy who wants to buy it. This is how many he wants to buy. Once we get down here, we suddenly have an additional person who's willing to pay for this product. And so we have to add their demand going forward to the total demand. And so we end up with if the price falls to zero, then we're going to demand this much from the first person and this much from the second person. Total demand might be out here. And so we end up with some kind of curve that looks like this. Okay. All right. So the main point is, if it's a normal good, we add demand horizontally. For each price or willingness to pay, we add the quantity that everyone wants. But suppose this is now let's suppose that this actually is a non-rival good, okay? We've still got the first person's demand here. This is supposed to be the same as the other figure. And now we have to think about how much of this good are these people going to demand? Well, as we saw earlier, right now, each person would demand this much if it was their own personal thing. But look, because this is a public good, this product, this park, cannot be excluded from enjoyment from person one. Person one can enjoy all of quantity two that this other person has paid for. Okay, so they're not going to pay for any increase in it. All right, they can already enjoy it for what it is. If they wanted to increase the quantity a little bit more, the cost of doing so would be well above their willingness to pay. So they're just going to free ride. Okay, and so this is how good the park will be, as good as basically the richer guy wants to pay. But we're undervaluing this park now, because the total value between these two people is the value that person one and person two gets from this. So hold on. We need to add these things together. If this person values this at, say, 100, that first, existence of the park, and maybe this is 50, between the two of them, it's 150, right? So that's the total value two people enjoy. And as long as at this point here, person two gets no further value from the park, but everything above there, we got to add their two values together. And so we end up with a demand curve that looks like this. This is supposed to be a straight line. Let me try do a better job. Okay. So this higher value up here is total willingness to pay for this quality Q, whereas over here we added horizontally. So that was the total quantity demanded and any willingness to pay. Here's the total value. This is kind of like the opposite. It's the total value we get for any quantity. We add demand vertically for public goods. Okay, so what's the problem? Well, the problem is that if we're using a market to allocate this, then the total value of this product or of this park is actually given by this higher level up here, because we get the value this guy gets, demand from person 1, plus the demand person 2 gets, okay? And you can see that if we add their two values together, they actually would prefer to invest even more in the quality of the park. We'd actually prefer to go out to this level over here. Collectively, if they pooled their money, they would be willing to spend more than the cost to improve the park, okay? And this idea that you got to kind of find mechanisms to pool money, this is basically taxation. This is government. So we'll do an example to illustrate that next.